Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This will be a quick demonstration of my own custom personalized texture pack. This isn't anything too fancy, it's more experimental than anything. Now, the first thing I wanted to do with this mod is that I saw all the repeating textures and blocks in the games, like planks, and I'm like, why are these all exactly the same? So I went in and I changed them. I added this kind of vertical reinforced look to the oak. The dark oak, or the spruce, excuse me, probably looks like something you could use for a deck. The birch is more solid, straightforward planks with no variation, very spooky. The jungle planks are now vertical to match the sideways looking texture that they gave to... Shit, I forgot I was in creative. Anyways, the acacia blocks now have this nice little zigzag groove to the planks. I believe with the dark oak, I think I just darkened the outlines between the planks, and I changed the offset. I tried to make them look more rustic and nailed down. Oh yeah, torches now have more embers and goopy stuff around it to make them look thicker. And again, if I were making this as an actual mod or a resource pack, I'd probably change it so that if you placed a torch on, say, like a block of iron, it automatically turns into a light bulb. But because there's only one torch, I decided to leave it more as like the adventurer's torch, where it's just huge, whereas like the previous one was just like these four little bups on top. Here we have polished andesite, which I changed to a ventilation texture. Ever since they added, what was it, andesite, diorite, all the like miscellaneous stone, where it's like neither the rough or smooth variants really looked attractive for building anything, so I just used those as freeball textures. Since I wanted to lend more to industrialism, I wanted to have more blocks in the game that were closer to solid white that you could use more liberally, without having to hunt them down. White concrete is pretty much the same, I think. Smooth quartz. This texture has changed, I believe. Yeah, this is not the texture I assigned to it, because the texture I put before was more... I tried to change the textures to be more solid white, or at least have lower contrast, so that they weren't as noisy and you didn't look like a broke boy for building with them. I think these still end up looking like eggshells. Or like giant vanilla ice cream. Polished diorite, I think, still might have this effect that I applied. Where, again, I tried to lower the contrast. Because before, these things used to have like a visible outline, and you can still kind of see it if you look hard enough, but the outline itself has been now made more lighter than the actual inside of the texture. So you can still build with solid white and get that nice sterile look. And again, I kind of goofed on the iron. I made it look more cartoony than it had any good being. Actually, I think this over here demonstrates my point perfectly, because you had diorite, and then you had smooth diorite before, which kind of like just looked like this, but like brightness increased by like 33 or something. Whereas now it's just like this blinding white, so I think this still kind of works. I couldn't figure out what to do with polished granite. I wanted to maybe make it look more marble textured instead of, again, whatever this noise business was going on here. I can't remember if marble is in the game at this point. I don't play Minecraft often enough to know anymore. Blocks of gold now look like caution tape for your industrial builds. That was another thing I wanted to do with this texture pack, was make it more industrial friendly. I did the same thing to the iron bars. I made them look more cartoony. The ladders are now red and flashy and have this like weird fake depth to them with the coloring, and I tried to make them look more like a ladder you'd see in Half-Life. They still function like ladders. Glass blocks I tried to make slightly more see-through by removing some of the noise while still having an outline. I'm sure there are some mods or resource packs you can use along with glass that make it so that you just remove the outlines, but in my opinion, sometimes it's still good to have them. Crafting benches now have this nice little red velvet blanket on top of them, instead of just, what was it before, like a blanket of leather. The furnace now has a leather or wooden chopping block on top of it. You could say this is where you cut up all your little meats while you're cooking. Incidentally, this texture also happens to end up on top of things like dispensers, because they all use the same stone top texture. And the same siding texture, which I didn't change too much, other than I think this used to be cobblestone, and I changed it to the old default programmer art stone, maybe. Now we're on to the fun parts. All the tools in their tiers have been retextured, because previously, every single one of them was shaped the same. Now, again, this is personal preference, that I took an issue with it. I took that personally, so I had to get in there and I had to change it. The iron tools look more like those fancy schmancy hyper modernized tools that you buy at Home Depot and Lowe's anymore, where it's like all the handles are made of plastic and they have like the hexagonal ridges. The iron shovel now has this little red bandana or whatever tied around for one of the handles. The iron pickaxe now has an iron handle to reinforce, and it has a bit more of a curve. The iron axe looks more like a fire axe and has a blue handle. The wooden tools, I figured, since these are even in the game in the first place, I wanted to make them look like shitty little caveman tools. So what I did is, I went in there and I added lighter colors to something to look like little bits of twine, and then I added brighter colored actual utility ends of the tools to make them look like they were cut from the actual innards of the tree, whereas these are just the branches. Here's the pickaxe. It looks more like just a twig straight across. It's got the little hat cross-section there of twine. This thing really just looks like a block of... Oh, yeah. This thing just looks like a block of wood attached to the end of a... The stone tools are kind of the same philosophy, but slightly more dignified looking, I guess. Still got the bit of twine holding the stone on there. I didn't do too much to change up the shapes of these, but the axes I did want to make look more large and unwieldy and heavy. Now we get to the gold tools, and everybody knows that, like, if you're using gold tools, you're pretty much memeing or trying to look like a baller. So I followed that philosophy when making these. The shovel, I don't think there's much change other than you got this little pattern in the middle here in the spade for directing. The golden pickaxe looks more like an overwieldy, like overly large thing. These almost look like dwarf tools. You got the golden axe, which looks like a double-sided war axe. I forget what I did with the hoe. I think I just added the twine there. Same thing with the stone hoe. There's a bit of twine. The iron hoe, I extended it out by just a bit. That way, in case you wanted to, like, RP as the Grim Reaper or something, and then show up at people's doorstep, be like, I've come to take your diamonds, and then you get RP banned. I wanted to do stuff to change the diamond tools, but then I figured out of principle, by the time you get to diamonds, those tools have already gotten so iconic for what they are in the game that you could probably just leave them as they are and be like, finally, we've gotten back to here. Actually, now that I look at it, I think I changed the coloring here of the backlight of some of the diamond tools so there's more purple. It gives it more contrasting or depth colors, I guess. The one sword, my beloved. This thing really does look like a 10-year-old put it together in his backyard. The stone sword here, this thing looks so, like, antithetical to what a sword probably should be. Because, like, the little groves here make it look like they were a bunch of stones, like, stacked on top of each other and, like, just jammed together. The iron sword looks more like a fucking default-ass, like, steel sword from Skyrim. You know, the kind of sword where it's like, you put this in, like, the start of a dungeon chest, and this is, like, your default-ass adventurer's ass sword. The golden sword, I originally wanted to look more like a saber or a scimitar or whatever it's called, but then one of my friends said, like, this looks like a dildo, man, so I changed it to more of a rapier. The bow is now this black color. It looks more like a compound bow, and it doesn't bend as much. Industrial type room, just to give you guys more of a sampler of how the texture pack works. Here you got your little ventilation ducts going up from the ceiling downwards. You got your little caution tape separating the sections of the room. And then here we have... Oh boy! And then also to demonstrate the different styles of planks, I decided to build this thing. The roof doesn't size well as much as the rest of it. You got the acacia here, which looks more like a decorative walking section for your floor. You got the oak planks with the reinforced vertical bar in the middle periodically. Jungle planks are also fully vertical. here, because the spruce has the little reinforced plank on the top, again, you can use that as like sort of a countertop. You have this little porch here, this little wooden deck that I mentioned earlier, which best demonstrates the spruce planks. You come up to the attic, and then you get the dark oak planks. This is the one thing, I guess, that's the downside of me changing the ladder, is that there's only one ladder texture. If I knew how to mod Minecraft and it wasn't a complicated mess of Java and setting up an API, I'd probably just add like a separate ladder that was still the stick ladder, but made it look more like the wooden tools where it had the bits of twine on it. Otherwise, if you do end up building wood structures with wooden sticks, you still end up getting a Half-Life 2 ladder. Again, quick and dirty room. This kind of shows off the majesty, the nailed down dark oak planks. Oh yeah, there's something else I forgot to mention about the crafting table, is it has these little scythe tools, it has better trimmers on the side. I've also changed the UI of some of the inventory screens to have backgrounds that reflect what you're opening, so wood chests now have this, the wood texture repeating in the background. Yes, you have this little attic here, and then you can look out. This kind of reminds me of that one Shel Silverstein story. I don't believe I did anything too fancy. Yeah, because it's a super flat world or whatever. There's only like 3 blocks deep until I got to this. Oh yeah, pistons now have this cleaner look to them. They don't have the cobblestone texture. They just have this smoothened stone texture, which even has a bit of embossing to it. Same thing for the tops of pistons. Is this a sticky? No, it's not. This is a sticky piston. It still looks like wood planks under the slime there. But I guess that's... Alright, it looks more rustic with the slime anyways. Ordinary pistons are smoothed over, however. Oh, I kind of ruined the surprise here. This was supposed to be up and I'd click it and then I'd do a better presentation, but it's been so long since I opened this world. I've changed up some of the mob textures to look spookier. The skeleton now has more robust ribs, I believe. And also he looks more like he's got the Jolly Roger smile looking on. This might be more of an edgy and controversial decision I've made. But the zombies now have chunks of flesh missing. And you can see the ribs poking out, and as you can see there, he's got a chunk in the back of his head missing. Creepers I've now made even more terrifying. Creepers I've now made more terrifying than they have any right being. Now when you see a creeper in the wild, it looks like this. It has faces on all sides of its head, so even as it's wandering around, just doing its idle look around, you can't tell which way it's facing. Seriously, even if you, like, stand from a distance and just, like, take your eyes off of it for, like, a few seconds. And you just let it walk around, you can't tell what it's doing. I'm sorry, this is annoying, give me a second. When I first made these, I ended up basing them off of, what was it, the 10,000 Days Tool album cover. So yeah, that's about it for my texture pack. Not the fanciest thing in the world, but if you have any pointers, of course you could probably tell me in the comments.